One of the very first videos that I ever uploaded on this channel was called Don't Buy a BMW Until You Watch This, and to this day that's my most viewed video. It's got over 2 million views on it. Some of you may have even subscribed to my channel after watching that, and a lot of people gave me good feedback on it, but a lot of you said, hey, you should be more specific for the BMW E90 3 Series. So in this video I'm going to go over some really specific issues that you could have with these cars, so that way you guys know exactly what to look for when you're looking at the dealership or the private seller. And I'm also going to go over some of the most sought after options that were available on the E90. That way you get exactly the car that you're looking for, and it's got all the options and everything that you want. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so first let's go over some of the most common problems that the E90's had. That way you know exactly what to look for when you go to the dealership or the private seller to check one of these out. First off, you're going to want to turn on the heat or the air conditioning and just make sure that there's actually air coming out of the vents. It's pretty common for the motor that blows that air to fail. That happened on my car around 40,000 miles, so it could happen really at any mileage, but just make sure that that fan works and there's actually air coming out of the air vents. Along with that blower motor, you're also going to want to check all 4 windows and make sure that all of them roll up and down properly. It's pretty common for those motors to burn out, and then your windows aren't going to roll up and down. So again, just make sure that all the windows are working correctly. Another issue that I just started having recently with my car, and I did a little bit of digging and found out that this is actually pretty common, is when you fold the mirrors in, they kind of fold in the right way, but then as they're folding out, the driver's side mirror goes beyond the point where it's supposed to stop at, and then no amount of adjusting the mirror from the inside is going to align it right. So I actually have to reach out the window and kind of pull the mirror back into the right place. And the reason that that happens, there's like this spring-loaded pin inside the mirror, and I guess over time that pin can get stuck, so then as the mirror's opening, it doesn't quite know where to stop. Now, fortunately, I looked up some DIYs on the internet, and it looks like just spraying a little bit of WD-40 in there can fix it, but if you can avoid that headache altogether, just be aware of that issue. One really good thing about shopping for the E90 is that there's so many of them for sale at any given time. No matter where you live, it seems like that if you come across one and it's just not 100% perfect, there's 1 or 2 little things wrong with it, you can just be patient and keep looking, and eventually you'll find the right one. Alright, so on to the engine. So the inline 6 cylinders that we're using in these cars, and especially the non-turbocharged N52 engine, are known for being reliable engines, although there are a couple weak points here and there that you can look out for. Cooling systems in these cars are especially sensitive to the type of coolant that you're using, so when you check the coolant, not only make sure that it's at the right level, but also make sure that it's the correct color, and it should be a kind of a pale blue. It's kind of hard to see here on camera, but you don't want to look in there and see that bright green color that a lot of other cars use. That's not the correct formula for this car. So personally, I like to use the BMW brand coolant, but there are other brands out there that make this light blue formula that's specifically made for BMW engines. So that's just something to look out for. And if you look in there, you see that it's green, that could be an indication that other things on the car weren't maintained correctly. Maybe they've been using conventional oil and other things like that. So just be aware of that. If you see the green coolant, that could be a bad sign. Probably the weakest point on the E90 engines were the water pump and thermostat. They tend to go bad between 80 and 100,000 miles, and so if you're looking at one in that 100,000 mile range, you don't have any receipts or any evidence that the water pump was ever replaced, you're going to want to budget around $400 for that water pump and thermostat kit, because that's going to be pretty much inevitable with that amount of mileage on it. Also going to want to check for oil leaks, and especially around the oil filter housing and around the valve cover gasket. Those tend to be the most common places where oil can leak out. Now there are other places where oil can leak that's not exactly visible just by looking at it, so you may want to have that pre-purchase inspection, because they're going to get deeper into the engine, take some things apart to get a better view of where the oil may be leaking out, because your average dealership, your average private seller, they're not going to let you sit there in the driveway and take the engine apart. So that's where that pre-purchase inspection comes in handy. Another really common leak with these cars is from the headlight washer sprayers, and you probably won't see it leaking out onto the ground, but if you run your hand along the side of the bumper, like near the fog light underneath, that's usually where the washer fluid pools up. I just did a video recently replacing mine. There's a whole DIY on that. It's pretty simple, and it really wasn't all that expensive, so definitely check that out if you come across one that has that problem. Not that big of a deal, it's just kind of annoying to have to fix it. So if you find an E90 that you're really serious about purchasing, it doesn't hurt to get that pre-purchase inspection by the BMW dealership. They're going to go through a whole checklist and make sure that everything on the car is working the correct way. Also definitely check the Carfax. I can't tell you how many people message me and email me about these rebuilt titles that they're looking at, or cars with flood damage. Do not buy a car with a rebuilt title. Get yourself something with a clean title and you'll be good to go. Now for the options that you're going to want to look for, and I actually got really lucky with my car, not really knowing anything at all about BMWs when I was shopping for it. I ended up with a car that had almost every option that was available at the time, so here are some of the most popular options that you're going to want to look for. One thing that a lot of people have been asking me about lately is how I start the car without putting the key in, and that's called comfort access. That allows you to lock and unlock the doors and also start the car and drive around as long as the key is in your pocket. You never have to take it out, you never have to, press the unlock button or anything. As long as the key is in your pocket, you can lock the doors, you can get in the car and drive around. Another thing that you're going to want to look for is the Xenon headlights that were available on the higher trim models. That's going to give you those corona rings, or angel eyes if you want to call them that. And a lot of people ask about that. They say like, hey, I have a 325, is there any way that I can upgrade and get the Xenon headlights? Technically you can, but they're around $700 each. So you'd be looking at $1,400, not including installation, to upgrade those lights. So the point is, if you can find one that already has them on it when you buy it, that's definitely the way to go. Heated seats are really nice if you live in a cold climate. That's one of those things that I always thought, I'd never pay extra for heated seats, but I'm definitely happy that my car came with them. The navigation on these cars was kind of clumsy, especially the earlier models, but having that big screen definitely makes the interior look a lot more modern. If you don't have navigation, it just kind of looks a little bit boring, and it feels like something's missing on the dashboard. The aluminum trim is somewhat of an uncommon option since most of these cars were sold with the wood grain trim, which I personally hate. And that's another thing that technically you could upgrade. If you had the wood, you could get the aluminum trim, but I just checked on eBay and the kit is around $600 for that trim. So again, if you can find one that already has that aluminum trim pre-installed, that's even better. If you live in an area that gets a lot of snowfall, you may want to look for an all-wheel drive model. Now that's one of the specific reasons that I wanted my car. It's a 330xi, and I wasn't even really particularly shopping for BMWs. I was just looking for all-wheel drive cars with manuals, and that's how I found my car. But it's really great. It works just as well as Audi or Subaru in the snow, especially with snow tires. It's just so much fun to drive around with all-wheel drive BMW. So again, you're going to want to look for XI in the model name if you're looking for an all-wheel drive model. The only package that my car doesn't have that I wish it did is the M Sport package. That's going to give you the M body kit, the shifter, the steering wheel. That's also going to give you some bigger wheels and a slightly different suspension. So that's something that you can look for, definitely more aggressive looking if you can find one with that configuration. So based on a lot of the comments that I got from my previous BMW buyer's guide, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, and that is, why would I want to buy a car if they can have all these problems? So if you really think about it, none of the stuff that I mentioned, maybe with the exception of the water pump and possibly the valve cover gasket if you have that installed at the dealership, none of the other stuff is really particularly expensive to fix. There are quite a few annoying little things here and there, but really nothing that major. Now just to put that in perspective, my friend has a Pontiac Grand Prix GXP, and he just spent $2,000 having the transmission rebuilt, and that's really unheard of for E90s. You never hear about an E90 having some catastrophic transmission failure or engine failure that costs thousands and thousands of dollars to fix. There are a few annoying little things here and there, like that blower motor for the air conditioning, the mirrors, but none of that stuff is really that big of a deal. At the end of the day, you just have to ask yourself, if I have to spend money on car repairs and maintenance anyway, would I rather do it on a car that I absolutely love, or one that I just kind of settled for because Consumer Report told me that it was a good buy? Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're in the market for an E90 and you found this information helpful, please just give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And you're probably going to want to subscribe to my channel because I've got a whole playlist of maintenance videos and DIY videos for E90s that you're going to find helpful if you end up buying one of these cars. Also, if you already own an E90, maybe leave a comment below and mention some of the issues that you've had that maybe I didn't discuss in the video. This video focused on the most common problems that you're going to have on pretty much any E90. So if you've had some kind of issue that I didn't explain in the video, maybe leave a comment below of what people can expect. So anyway, thanks for watching, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.